Hey there, guitar fanatics. Are you ready to break out of scale jail? You know, I'm constantly asking my students what their number one problem is, and I hear again and again, well, I've learned all these scale and arpeggio patterns. I do drills and exercises so I can play them all over the fretboard. But when I go to play solos, it just sounds like scale practice. Or my solos sound so mechanical. How can I be more creative? And I'm always sure to tell them, don't be so hard on yourself. If all you've been practicing is scales and patterns, what do you expect your solos to sound like? The good news is you can practice sounding more soulful. You can practice being more creative. And I'm going to show you 4 great concepts in this lesson to help you do just that. If you want to break out of your old patterns and start sounding more melodic, more expressive, and more professional, well, let's play some guitar. So let me say right away, there is nothing wrong with practicing scales. There is nothing wrong with practicing arpeggio shapes. After all, everything we play, every note comes from some scale, right? You need to not just get that stuff under your fingers, but you need to know scales and patterns all over the fretboard like the back of your hand. But it's what you do from there with the harmonic knowledge and the technique that you're building up that's going to dictate how your playing sounds. It's going to be your knowledge of the different intervals and how they sound over different chords that's really going to blow the roof off your ability to express yourself melodically. Let's get into a way to practice both scales and arpeggios that's going to increase your interval recognition and your creativity immediately. We're going to be doing some examples over a backing track that's in A major today, so we're going to use an A major scale for an example. A major has the notes A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and our octave A. Now we could practice the A major scale in any number of ways. Oh, something like this. But is that really how we want our solos to sound? What if we practice scales instead by taking a scale pattern and turning it into a series of little musical statements or licks? Let's go to the A at the 7th fret of the D string, and we're just going to take a few notes at a time and try to do something musical. How about starting with a downward slide into our A, playing the B, bend that up to C sharp, let off that bend, slide into C sharp, and then back to B and A. Next, we could do an upward slide into the 4th or the D at the 7th fret of the D string, and then immediately drop to the C sharp at fret 6, bend it back up to D. Milk that bend for a moment, release it back to C sharp, and slide up to E at fret 9. Give that a little dramatic vibrato, and we could finish off our octave by creating a little motif. How about we bend E up a whole step to F sharp, release that bend and play D. Go to F sharp, bend it up a whole step to D sharp, release that bend and play E. Go up to G sharp, bend it to A. Go back down to F sharp, and we come to our A note, and we're going to bend that up to C sharp, which is our major third, and we could even do a David Gilmour kind of a thing and bend it all the way up to D, and then drop back down to our A. Let's put that all together over our backing track. So there's creativity practice drill number 1. Take a 1-octave scale pattern, break it up into little chunks, and apply phrasing. Bends, slides, vibrato, pinch harmonics. Play around with little rhythms and motifs. Literally, just experiment and let yourself be creative. And while it might feel a little awkward and silly at first because we guitarists, we like our practice structured, don't be shocked when you start to come up with some really cool ideas. Now we can do the same thing with arpeggio shapes. Now there's these 5-note arpeggio shapes that I'd love to play. They're on the E, B, and G strings. Here's the shape for A major 7. Here's the shape for B minor 7. And over an A chord, we could play, for instance, D major 7, C sharp minor 7, B minor 7, and A major 7. Now, I play those shapes in that sequence a lot. It's got a sound because we're playing quintuplets. But I always have to ask myself, is that really creative, or am I just running shapes like a robot? What if instead we just take that A major 7 shape, for instance, and start to embellish it? Let's try to get ourselves in the mindset of how many different licks can I create with and around this little shape. On the high E, the arpeggio has the notes E and G sharp. Let's start embellishing by playing the E, hammer on to F sharp and G sharp, and then slide into the A and back to G sharp, then pull off down to F sharp and E. Now we've just created a little 7-note pattern, and then we can descend through the rest of the shape with C sharp, A, and G sharp. And we could just end there, or we could add a cheeky little bend by hammering onto the A, sliding down into G sharp, and then bending back up to A. Now, we could play the whole thing smoothly and unbroken like we just did, or we could create a variation where we pause on the G sharp momentarily and then finish the lick. For another variation, how about we start at the lower end of the arpeggio? We're going to ramp up into it by playing G sharp, A, B, A, and G sharp. And then we're going to ascend and descend through our shape. Notice I slid from G sharp to A and back on the high E string. And we could end that lick with some phrasing on one string by sliding from F sharp to G sharp, E to F sharp, and then C sharp to E. Here's one more variation. We're going to go through that same lick, and then we're going to slide down to our E at fret 9, play F sharp, G sharp. We're going to bend the F sharp up into G and then release it, pull off to E, and the cherry on top, we're going to play a tapped harmonic, slide to C sharp, and play a tapped harmonic there up an octave. Let's hear both of those variations over our track. Check it out. So at this point, yes, the arpeggio is part of the lick, but it's not the lick itself. We've stepped way beyond just playing a shape or pattern mindlessly because it's easy, and we're forcing ourselves to use our creativity muscles to come up with something different and original. To quote the great Marty Friedman, any monkey can learn a technique and get great at it. But playing a technique is not playing music. Now, while that's maybe not entirely accurate, I get his point. Strive to make your licks melodic, musical, and original. Don't just rely on the same generic shapes that everybody uses. Now here's an idea that's completely out of left field. What if we took a fragment of a scale and embellished it with some really creative right-hand tapping? Now, a lot of times when we hear tapping, it's done with a set of triplets. Or maybe some other rhythmic figure that repeats. And again, that's really cool, but it's kind of predictable and it's already been done. How about something a little more unpredictable? Let's start with the descending A major scale fragment going from the B at fret 9 of the D string all the way down to the A at the 5th fret of the low E. And we could spice up just that fragment a little by doing a long slide into the first note. It's a little reminiscent of Steve Vai, but we could really push it over the top by hammering onto G sharp A and B at fret 6, 7, 8 of the D string. Then we're going to tap at fret 21. That's a B note. We're going to pull off that tap and go back down to G sharp and then hammer onto A and B again. After we hammer onto that A and B, we're going to tap at fret 18, slide into fret 19 and back, and then pull off back down to our G sharp. And that could be a lick unto itself. It sounds really cool because of that wide intervallic jump, but also because of the variation in the rhythm caused by sliding the tap on the second time through. From there, we're going to go to the A string, hammer onto the D, E, and F sharp at frets 5, 7, and 9. We're going to tap C sharp at fret 16. Pull off and go back down to the D, and lastly we're going to go to the low E string. We're going to hammer onto A, B, and C sharp at frets 5, 7, and 9. And we're going to go up and we're going to tap G sharp at the fret 16, slide it into the A at fret 17 and back, and then pull off down to our A. So our left hand is doing this in the lick. And our right hand is doing this. So some of you ask sometimes how a lick fits into the beats. And for this lick, the tap notes are on the down beat in my mind. So if our count is 1, 2, 3, 4, the tap notes would sound like this. And our whole lick slowly sounds like this. Now, playing a lick like this and mixing up 2 taps on one string or sliding a tap note around makes things sound unpredictable and random. And in that example, we've got 15 notes on the D string, 7 notes on the A string, and 9 on the low E. So how about an ascending lick? Let's play A, B, and C sharp on the low E, tap fret 16, slide it to 17, back to 16 and pull off, and then hammer onto our A, B, and C sharp again. We're going to go to the A string, we're going to tap fret 16, and pull off and play frets 5, 7, and 9. We're going to go to our D string, and we're going to tap the G sharp at fret 18, pull off and hammer onto frets 6, 7, and 9. We're going to go to the G string, we're going to do a tap slide at frets 18 and 19, pull off to fret 6, hammer onto frets 7 and 9, and then we're going to tap at fret 19. We're going to slide our fretting hand up to the A note at fret 14, so when we pull off the tap, that note is there, and we are going to end this lick by hammering onto the B at fret 16, and then we're going to bend it up to C sharp. And the section on the G string alone could be a cool lick. Here's that whole thing. Well, so far we've practiced taking a 1-octave scale and turning it into several smaller licks, making up multiple licks using an arpeggio pattern as the basis, and then really turbocharging some scale fragments with some creative tapping. All of this is coming from the mindset is how can I take something that I already play, apply some creativity to it, and come up with something really different in my own, or your own, as the case may be. Now here's another way to take a scale and break it up into something that sounds different and fresh. How about using different combination of intervals from a scale to make up lines? Now we should be able to play through our major scale in thirds, and fourths. And we've probably all heard this pentatonic scale lick that's a combination of thirds and fourths. If you want to hear that used really well, check out Neil Sean's solo on an old Journey song called Lights. Fifth intervals also sound really great. And we've probably all heard Joe Satriani and John Petrucci play this kind of thing. Sixths are also very useful sounding, and they sound like this. We could play a nice sounding lick like this one with sixth intervals climbing all the way up the fretboard. Let's take a listen to some of those interval concepts over our backing track. I hope this gives you some great ideas for breaking out of scale jail, as I called it. And although this may sound counterintuitive, remember, creativity is something you can work on. You just have to experiment and challenge yourself to play something different. Take some patterns you already know and just ask yourself, how can I wreck this stuff and then rebuild it? As I said before, you're going to surprise yourself with all the great things you come up with. Check out patreon.com/Charlie Long for tabs, backing tracks, diagrams. Until next time, work hard, play hard, have lots of fun with your guitar. I'll see you soon. Bye.